adventure right before we went on the air. I could hear him, but he could not hear me. So we went to plan B, and then we went to plan C, and then finally, here we are, the one and only.
Do you want to know when it happened the last time? I was talking to NASA.
Okay.
Like the National Aeronautics and Space Agency, and I'm giving a talk at NASA. I'm terrified, nervous as hell, and then this happens. Like we're getting no sound. So we did the whole thing. I mean, it's like they're science people, right? They're supposed to get this working, but no. So we did it with them talking to me on the phone, and then I would talk to them through the computer. It was the weirdest thing.
I'm at a loss for words a little bit on that, because it sounds like that's not what you'd expect from NASA. You expect like they'd have their shit together. Nope. It's like
no, it could have been a man. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I lost like 20 pounds just sweating.
Anything that like can go wrong did go wrong right at the start of your speech. You're like, oh shit, they can't hear me. Now what do I do? It's Fleur de Villainy. Here's, we'll just show that little combo here. Hello.
Hey. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh, dude, I'm thrilled you wanted to come. I mean, the last time you saw me, I destroyed an Aerosmith song on in a karaoke area.
How long was that? How long ago was that?
That was like that was 2019. That was like right before the right before I moved from Calgary all the way to Vancouver, and then of course the pandemics happened, so now nobody's doing anything fun. But that was like, it's 2019, man.
Because it's like yesterday and 20 years ago at the same time.
Yes,
super weird.
Yes. Good God, yes. So for those of you wondering, so Sylvain, I met him. Craig DeLuey introduced us, and we ended up goofing off with Angela Keeley, and we all sang "I Was Terrible." So terrible, like the song died on stage. Literally, I murdered it. It was enough, right? But I wanted to say, like, Sylvain Neuval's books, like the Themis trilogy, is amazing. I was like, you honestly, I have stolen so liberally from you. It's not even funny.
We're doing it now too.
Yeah.
Interviewing.
Yeah, that's right. No, we are. But I've been interviewing for 20 years. It never occurred to me until I read your book, do a whole novel like that. That was, I thought, ingenious. Like, where did that? Were you like a journalist in a past life? Like, what?
Nah, I don't know. I wanted the readers to get to know the characters in sort of in a different way. So instead of being in their head, you just listen to them speak and get to know them based on what they say, what they don't say, how they react to things. And so I thought, can I write a whole book with just dialogue? And I started doing it, and I kind of sort of raised that up a notch because I did unattributed dialogue. So it's 80,000 words of dialogue introduced with hyphens, and I never tell you who's talking.
No, I the guy behind the transcript, although, is probably the most important character. It's interesting how he shapes the whole idea. No, it was an incredibly brilliant way of telling a story. I actually, like, when I read the whole thing, it's like, you did a really good job of establishing relationship dynamics, right? The absurdity of finding like ancient alien artifacts and nobody has any idea what they're doing. It was fun. Like, it was a fun book, but you did it. It made sense. It's something I feel like would really happen, because people would be keeping this quiet, keeping this secret. There would be like these really weird pressure cooker kind of stuff going on. And that's a big part, especially of the first book, right? That's a big part of that.
I like epistolary novels. I wanted it to be sort of a collection of documents, so that in the end, in some way, the book itself, like the physical object, is part of the story. It's the pile of documents that these people made while they were studying this thing. I'm going to try and move this back. My head is gigantic on my screen.
This is incredible. No, I really like it was to me, at least, like, I thought, I read it, it's like, this is like an old school science fiction novel told in a very, very unique way. I really dug it. So I mean,
thank you.
Yeah. Really dug it. I have the second book still in my to be read pile right now. My stuff is like in 3 different places. Unlike everybody else in the pandemic, I just keep moving around. It just seems to be the way my journey is going to go. It's like, pandemic, it doesn't matter. You need to go somewhere else. So you do.
So you have TBR piles in different cities.
Yes.
Provinces.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I
Countries?
got one. Yes. Yes, I do. My grandmother's house in Detroit, Michigan has comic books. I still have over there. It's like, it's not many, but I got most of them out of there. But there's still like a giant pile of like Kylo Ren or Green Lantern books still there. I gotta go pick up at some point.
Nice. You've gone international.
Yeah. Well,
TBRing everywhere.
That's right. Everywhere I go, the only place I don't have books is Vancouver, because I just left those behind because just due to the fact that it was a pandemic, and it was like,
yeah, they're not the funnest thing to move either.
No, they're heavy as shit. So in my Windsor pile, I have like Fond du Lis Jade trilogy. I have the first book, and I have the second book. I was reading it, and here my pile has grown, but mostly here it's indie books, because just what I do. But your books are in Windsor, Ontario right now. That's where your books are.
All right.
Yeah.
All of them?
Yes.
As a family?
It's a whole family. Everything I have of yours, is currently there. I don't have your new one yet. After that, we'll talk about your new ones at the end here, just for promotion's sake. But your original trilogy I have is just like, okay, I gotta get these over here somehow, some way. But I had some really tough choices. I'm sorry, you lost the Spy X family. I'm sorry, you lost the Spy X. Yeah. You're like, damn it. Yes. But it was weird, because I still have like my storage locker in Calgary from when I first moved to Vancouver. So my original choice was, I had to choose between Fonda Lee and Brandon Sanderson. Fonda won because her books were smaller.
Yeah. Well, for my defense, I write small novels, though.
Yeah, you do. No, they do. No, you do. Like, small, compact. You're an old school sci-fi novelist, my friend. You're an old school sci-fi novelist. So that's
I'm old.
Well, no, old
I got
school,
half of it down.
Yeah, I think old school too. I like the old the old pulp situations, like the old Roger Zelazny's, Robert Silverberg's, right? That's kind of where I have you pegged. You do it in a different way, but you tell a lot of those same kind of stories.
I have an old soul.
Yeah, or something like that. I have an old soul. He does sing better than
and liver.
Yes, that way it has to. You're in Montreal. I mean, of course, like I said, and I know you can drink because I was there and I drank with you last time.
It's funny because I went to karaoke, like, what was it, Saturday?
Yeah,
and it was the first time since that. No, actually, no. I went once in the Philippines in a very tiny place before the pandemic. But since the pandemic, it was my first karaoke. For one thing, it was illegal here. You weren't allowed to dance and to sing in one state. Well, bars were closed for a while, and then they opened with limited capacity. But you couldn't get up, and you couldn't sing for some reason. I don't know. They made it illegal. So, and there's a little tiny brewery, like literally 100 feet from my house, that makes great beer, and they had their first legal karaoke on Saturday, so I went.
Nice. What'd you
Songs
sing?
were sang that didn't need to be. Musical choices were made that some may regret at some point, but it was good.
It's okay. If I had been there, they all would have been giant regrets. It would have been wonderful. I'm hoping to karaoke sometime next year. We'll kind of see how it all plays out. Yeah. I get the feeling, the insanity. It's gonna be like this for a little while, for a bit. Buy some booze. Try to have some fun. Probably be a pirate. it's kind of like my plan for the next year, kind of be like a pirate.
I wanted to be an astronaut, but it seems to be getting complicated. So this plan was not properly hatched. So I'll have to come up with a new one. Pirate sounds okay.
Yeah, but well, you know, I might be more infamous than famous when it's all said and done, so it might be a little complicated that way. But it's a dishonest time, you know. It's just one of those.
We could share though. We could be the same pirate.
Yes,
Like the
yes.
dreaded pirate Roberts. I mean, if you make it a part-time job, it's much less demanding. You have time for your family, and you can do things, and travel, and yeah.
Yeah, I somehow see. The only thing is, I somehow feel I'm a little more reckless than you are. So I get the impression that if we were the same guy, I mean, you might tone me down, but I might get you in deeper trouble than what you asked for. So I almost feel like I'm not sure you win that trade-off. I might win that trade-off a little bit.
No, it's not that bad. We just need like rules. You know, you clean up your mess.
Yeah, no, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I'll be.
You break it, you buy it, and then
Yeah. I got it. Yeah.
But there could be half a dread
So
pirate
basically,
something.
like a pirate name, like we'll just say just for the sake of argument, John Silver version Montreal, like codename Montreal, and then like John Silver codename Canmore, and people like will know what that is, but nobody else would understand that. It's like, who did that? Montreal, what did you do? Stuff. Canmore, what did you do? About that, you might need to be aware of this.
That's a plan.
Yeah.
Do it in Morse code. It's even harder to.
Something less incriminating.
Yep.
Although sometimes, there is like that little bit of me that like watched The Simpsons as a kid, and I am of the belief that people just get away with stuff in broad daylight all the time, like just very quietly, because of just watching that. It's like I never thought I'd see some of the stuff I saw on The Simpsons in real life, and in terms of just people doing stuff, cops. Some of the stuff there. I've seen some of that stuff in real life, and now I'm starting to wonder maybe they were onto something a long time ago, and now just like everybody just does stuff out in the open, and just as long as it looks normal.
There's like real bad stuff, but in terms of like petty criminal or not so petty criminal things, people have sort of always done it. When I was much younger, I had a friend who worked mall security, and people would walk into Sears. And like two guys, they'd bring in straps and they'd leave with a washer and dryer. Like they'd make 2 trips. And no one would think of stopping them. I mean, it just
happened all the time.
You know, if 2 guys come and pick up a washer and dryer, there's got to be a reason. So you let them go, and that's it. People would open the door for them, and
that's impressive. So it's just. There might be a future in this pirate thing after all. Yeah, we'd have to talk about some ground rules and, and not to get caught. There might be,
no washer dryer.
No. That's too much work. Like, honestly, like, I was thinking, like, petty stuff, like smuggling booze. I don't know.
Well, for pirates, you kind of have to smuggle booze. I think it's sort of...
It's a rule,
It has to be rum, too. I don't really like rum, but whatever.
You mead guy?
No.
No, what's your booze of choice?
Well, hard liquor. I mean, I drink less of it, but I'm a bourbon guy.
You're a bourbon guy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bourbon's doable. I think that's pirate-esque enough. I mean, you might have to occasionally mix a little rum in there, but we can do it.
All right.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm talking a criminal.
Conspiracy.
You want to openly talk about shit? Okay, whatever. Cool. But wow. It's cool. No, but you wanted to be an astronaut.
Well, I'd love to be an astronaut. I kind of have all the qualifications except for the science degree and the health and skills and whatnot. But I mean, I think other than that, it's basically 90% really wanting to go to space. And I mean, Shatner. If Bill Shatner can go, I can go.
I think that's fair. I mean, Chance, Bill's had a longer life than you, but I'm almost willing to bet you're smarter. Like I'm all like, I think that's a reasonable assumption there. So
I think I could hold my own against the Shatner and health-wise probably as well. So that's where I draw the line. You know, you can tell me I don't have what it takes to be an astronaut until you bring William up there.
Yeah,
Then,
and once it's like, fuck this, I'm in too. If he
yep,
can do it, if William Shatner can do it, I'm there.
exactly.
What's Shatner ever done? Fuck that guy. No. Yeah, duh. It's no. I mean, we depending on how the next 5 years go, depending on how that goes, space travel is probably going to be a real thing. Like,
well, it's not. I mean, it's sort of already a real thing if you have money coming out of your ass, but I think it's got to be a sort of semi-real thing for just regular rich people soon enough. And then soon-ish enough after that, there'll be like a cheapo version with, you know, uncomfortable seat or whatever that just slightly well-off people can probably
and
afford.
probably smells. I imagine outer space thing. How long he travels, there'd be an odor after a while. I just somehow I could see I could just see it.
Yep.
Like one of those like rickety ass bunkers. It's like, oh god, how long is it going to take to get there? A month. Oh,
No,
okay,
but there's a reasonable chance I can go to space in my lifetime. That's pretty cool.
No, I'd say I think the next 5 years it depends on what we do to ourselves. But assuming we don't wipe each other out, assuming sanity is sanity on some level, some compromise is reached, and there's a little less insanity and on the really top levels of things. Assuming all that happens, 5 years is definitely, I think, a real possibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the hands of sort of like weirdo trillionaires because it's all the private sector that's going to do it. NASA is going to be bogged down with their new moon thing for the next 20 years. So
yeah, but on the other hand, technology is doubling, is getting faster and better in a lot of ways, quicker.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, on the flip side, we're going to go, I think, through some degree or another, some form of decentralization in the next 5 years. I think that's almost a guarantee.
Yeah, I think for low orbit, you could do all sorts of things on the cheap. The moon is it's complicated and it's expensive. And the thing is, they're building this little tiny version of the space station around the moon.
Yeah.
Once you build it, though, you're kind of screwed. I was talking to Terry Virts, former astronaut. I was hosting I was interviewing him for his book launch, and he was saying, once they build it, they kind of have to go, right? You can't not go. Mm-hmm. So, and then so you have these regular trips to the moon that can't not cost a fortune. And so if you want to do anything else besides that, you need money and more and more and more and more money. So I think for the rest of us, if we're not going to the moon, it's gonna have to be the trillionaires, megalomaniacs or whatever that have to take us.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting, kind of to see how that all plays out. Like I said, there is because I was reading. I remember way back in the late '90s. There's a novel called Oxygen, and the thing more so than the story itself, it was what's in the back of the book. They were just showing where technology was and where there were certain projections to be, right? And one of the things I think that's been interesting about this time, and one of the things I realized about this time is, technology has made a lot, especially communication, cheap as shit, right? And there's 7 billion, or 8 billion maniacs currently on the planet, right? If a bunch of us and we have plenty of time on our hands thanks to this wonderful situation, somebody somewhere, I'm sure, is trying to build a rocket ship that works on the cheap somewhere. I would all, because you got nothing else to do.
Well, it's funny because the ones we're dealing with now, like the Blue Origins and the SpaceX, they were not a part of it, but when they all started pretty much when or right after there was this little boom that the founder of the X Prize created. I forget his name, but he gave $10 million to the first person to fly twice to to the lowest definition of space, and like there were quite a few people who signed up for it, and some of them had money. You have the Virgin Galactic guy. He ended up as a part of it, but I think they won. Their project was funded by Apple money, not Steve Jobs, the other guy.
Oh fuck! The guy had replaced him, right?
No, the guy that he kind of screwed over, I think. I forget. Anyway,
yeah, that's
but,
not. That's not this
but some of these things were like just five guys with metal tools in a garage, just trying not to blow themselves up doing it.
And that's older, right? Now we have even more tools than what we had before. So it just kind of like so like we're entering a really like we're almost coming back to like to a I've always liked in this what's happening now is I think what's happened is a lot of our systems as we know it are obsolete. So I think one of the things going on is there's this transition to whatever next is going to look like. So I think there's going to be a lot of crazy motherfuckers like myself just trying different things right now because there's enough freedom and there's like kind of like an open opportunity to explore new horizons right now. I'm not sure it won't be just space. There'll be other things too. It'll be like we could find better ways of doing things right now.
I think the way we live here. I mean, there's the environment that sort of like is going to sort of speed up that process, that change. But even without it, just from a logical perspective, I mean, with everything we can do, we still go places in a gigantic metal can with moving like this on a strip of asphalt. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's 1900 technology. It's like
1930s at the absolute, like that's the absolute latest if you sit there and think about it. It's like that's it. The last real evolutions of the car were like the late 30s. So
yeah,
and we've had technology, and not just cars, with everything now for the last, I'd say easily 40 years that could change.
We're doing
the world.
this.
Yes.
I mean, turning a little wheel. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Absolutely. Like I mean, at least get to the point where we're like, maybe more like a remote control or something something to that effect. Because I mean, we play with this stuff all the time. So I mean, we like I say, it's just making it something that people understand and can operate relatively easily, right? The reason why the wheels, like we're still doing this, is because everybody gets the concept.
Yeah, but I mean, it could function in, I think, a much more efficient way that'd be less dangerous because I mean, we still run over people too because we're like not that good at doing this, right?
Yeah. No, we totally are. Like one things I've been studying is like robot cars. They're a thing. Like they're a real thing. One of the challenges is where I'm at right now. I'm in Canmore. You know that pass you go up that mountain where it's you gotta slow right the hell down, or there's a trip because that road hasn't been developed in like 40 years, and you ask yourself, why hasn't someone done something about this? Nope, not it. Zero. Right. But that ironically might stump a robot because the robot's like, oh, like just gonna drive, mind its own business, because it doesn't work like every other part of the road does. So it's like, whee!
Yeah. What I think is hilarious is all the the Tesla accidents that happen because there's a police car or an ambulance or whatever. The car freaks out when it sees little flashy lights and it just runs into something.
Yeah, it's just done. It just doesn't know what to do.
It runs into cops a lot. It's yeah.
Freudian slip somewhere, I'm sure, but that's probably anyway. But no, it's just interesting. Like you said, you're watching where all these things are developing and where they're going, and you're just looking at that and you're going, you know what? Most of these big giant systems we've had for the last 100 years, they aren't necessary anymore.
No.
I mean, you need police. You still need some form of police. You do need some form of military. You do need some form of fire rescue. You need some basic infrastructure things still. But not much else.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this time is like that opportunity where we can we all have some say into what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, that's
So
one of the things I sort of like about what's happening now. I mean, because there hasn't been a lot of good come out of the last couple of
I
years. It's
know.
been like, shit on top of crap, and uh, but this people talk about the Great Resignation and everything, but no, it's people who say, this way that I was sort of living my life before, some of it makes no sense.
Mhm.
We were spending way more time with our coworkers than with our children or our wives or husbands or partners or whatever. Forget parents and the rest of the family. Uh, all to sort of further not our goals really, but someone else's goal. Like, you want what you want to get a promotion in that system, but that has like 35 levels, but all it means is you're just better at furthering someone else's objective.
Well,
And you try to make it your own, but it's I don't know, there's something weird about it. And I like the fact that a lot of people are just questioning this.
yeah. Well, I mean, the day job makes no sense. If you really sit there and think about it, the concept of what we've had as a day job makes zero fucking sense because why? Okay, getting started when I'm just starting and getting out into the work world, it makes some sense. I need to get experience, some training, have an idea how to deal with people. Probably. I mean, just, probably. But there comes a point when you're in a job, especially when even prior to this, all these jobs were temporary at even before this, right? They might have lasted longer, but they were doomed. And anyone that stayed in any of these places was also doomed, right?
Yeah.
Um, barring a few exceptions. There are still some exceptions, but especially when I think about the 80s and like early 90s when my grandparents started to retire, way different time than now. Like it doesn't exist like that anymore.
Oh
Like
no, not at all.
not at all. So and now it's just accelerate. Like you can see it. There is no such thing as a permanent job. Everything's temporary. Everything's a gig economy. Like I just did a commercial for the first time ever for a client. And I'm doing a show, I'm doing another show for another client. And again, I'm a freelancer. I'm under contract to one, and that one was just a gig. That's probably more the present than the future. Work when I have to work to get
If
some
it
bills.
can be done in sort of a way that doesn't means you get screwed over, because a lot of what we call gig economy is about exploiting people by underpaying them, giving them
No
no
benefits,
benefit
right?
whatsoever, and not having to deal with anything like a normal company would have to.
It
There's got to be.
it goes both ways though, because this is what happens, right? In an economy like that, the company's worthless too. And I'm not saying that like a because nothing's permanent. Therefore, there's no loyalty. And no matter how big a corporation gets, it's only going to be able to get so small in terms of manpower. Then eventually it's going to need help from the outside. So what ends up happening is then it goes back to a very old school way of doing things. You want my help? It's going to take this much money for me to even think about
Yeah,
helping
you
you.
need to shift a lot of the power back into
Mm-hmm.
the workers' hands. But a lot of the gig economy is based on like a handful of companies that are basically just money scams, right? That have
Mm-hmm.
no hope of ever making a profit, but they're just somehow managing to convince other people to buy more stock, and then they grow and they grow, but they can't. There's no, I mean, even theoretical hope that they could make money. So I mean, at some point, the what you can squeeze out of these things is going to be limited. Like you take a company that I'm not going to name names, but that
No.
that delivers, say, food to people, among other things, and they hurt the restaurants because they'll charge like 30%, which restaurants can't handle. They don't have that kind of margin. The driver doesn't make enough for to make a living. He pays for his car, can't fix it, doesn't have a retirement out of this.
Mhm.
And the company loses money, which is the most amazing part of it. It's
Mhm.
like you think at least if you've screwed everyone over, you would make a profit. That's sort of the definition of the, it's the
Yeah,
concept of screwing people over.
that there is something to be said about losing money on paper versus the reality too. Sometimes there is a little bit of that happening, but wait, when you and I know the company you're talking about, and no, we're not going to name it because frankly, I don't have the pocketbook to fight them, and I don't think you do either,
No.
right? But what it comes down to is what's happened. There's it's going both ways. On one hand, if you're looking at it from a traditional standpoint of gig economy, driving employees, employers, if you're an employee, you're probably going to get worked. You just like the nature of this economy is exactly as you say. But if you're like me trying to freelance and do whole bunch of other things, you can like I'm almost at the point where I can really make like decent money as a freelancer. I'm at that point now where I'm making 4 figures a month. Now I want to make it a little higher, but I'm at that point where it's actually it pays the bills, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's paying the bills. I can put food on the table for it with it, and I'm doing this on a regular basis. So now the next step for me is get a few more steady clients, so I have just a regular workflow, and I don't have to deal like. And then power goes into my hands because if I have all that, then if
Yeah,
you
I
want me
mean,
to
and
work,
it part of it is a choice too. But even for like take anyone who
yeah,
does anything, not as a, you take someone who wants like the security and, the sort of routine because they feel better in that, and they'll work say 35 hours for a company. Doesn't matter what they do. I don't care if they're flipping burgers, doing
it
math,
doesn't matter.
or being the VP of human resources or whatever. I don't think any of these people are working more or less than the others.
I agree.
So and there could be some differences, I get it, but it makes no sense that any of these people working full time for doing something would not make a decent living out of it. Not talking
Absolutely.
buying Ferraris or anything, but
No,
you should be you should be able to afford reasonable housing and the vehicle and food and
Yeah, no, I mean, again, this is the class warfare aspect of what's going on right now, too, right? Going back to what I said, a lot of the systems that we exist today aren't necessary anymore. So what's happening right now is human nature. Those people who have been very wealthy for a very long time, there's a danger of them losing it. So what are they doing? They're trying to push down as hard as they can to keep what they have because even though the tides are changing, and they see that, and so they're like, "Well, we're going to do whatever we can now to keep what we have."
yeah.
Flip side,
The
the flip
rich
side.
are panicking right now because the money is moving from their pockets to the uber rich. Uh,
Yep, but also, I mean, it's also the fact that we have stuff like crypto now today. You don't need even the banking system is not safe anymore, and that's a very that's a first in over 100 years.
yeah, it's going to get regulated.
Some
Yeah,
I'm be curious as to how they do it because I think the problem with when you look at crypto is it can be mined, it can be discovered, it can be made, right? It's almost like a digital unique. Every one of them is a digitally unique resource that anyone can be a part of in the creation or finding. It's intellectual property to like the nth degree. I don't know how you regulate that based on what we have at this moment in time. And until someone can figure that out, it's going to wreak havoc because it means you don't need the system that exists today. And that's why you're
yeah.
seeing, I think, the pushback
But I think
you're seeing.
a lot of it will changes if suddenly what you have is now sort of like dark crypto and underground crypto. You have because right now, it's sort of it's become more of a speculative thing, and now the people that were trying to keep out of of this whole thing, the system that we're trying to bypass is now a part of it. They're investing in it, and everything's going to change to make it to their advantage, right? So suddenly it can't. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of digital currency. I don't like it when didn't like it when it became a speculative asset.
I'm 50-50 on it. I'm 50-50 on it. I like the idea. To me, it reminds me way back in the days when people would pay real money for World of Warcraft money. Kind of like, it's a throwback to me of that era a little bit. We got right at the same, because it's an interesting concept, mining for just certain things for money. At the same time, it's fiat. It's still kind of fiat. So it kind of goes. It kind of goes. It can go both ways. If there's, I don't know if you can actually, like one of the things about crypto is you can't. There's an upper limit for every one of these coins, and that's it. That's all that's made. That's all that's going to happen, and that's great because it will keep their value. Whereas when we inflate our money, it becomes kind of worthless. I mean, Canada's watching that happen kind of right now.
I sort of disagree, but
yeah, it's okay. Throw it out.
I don't think the inflation we're seeing right now is that. It's just, again, it's a bunch of people stuffing their pockets because they think they can.
Yeah.
You remember at the beginning, like people or construction industry was freaking out because like a 2x4 was like costing like 5 times the price. Well, it turns out the people selling the wood were not making a dime more. They had plenty of wood. The the store wasn't making an extra dime on it. No one. It was just there's one player at the middle of it who decides that he squeezes the market, jacks up the prices, and makes money. And I think a lot of what we're seeing has to do with that. There's like some supply chain issues that have to do with, well, you wanted to get rid of immigrants in Britain, so now you have no one driving trucks, and that's a problem. But whatever. But no, I don't think spending money for the government actually does anything if you're spending it in your own currency. It's an Excel file in the end, more or less.
Well, money at the end of the day is data. No matter whether it's crypto, cash, doesn't matter. It's all at some level. It's data. That's what it is in today's market.
Was it Doctorow? Yeah, I think Doctorow talks about this. Cory Doctorow talks about this a lot, and he says that government spending creates inflation if it competes with the public sector for the same thing. But it hasn't in the pandemic. I think we could have spent 10 times what we spent, and it wouldn't have made a difference because it wasn't competing against anything.
No, but there is a point too, because of the sheer amount of what we've inflated by, right? There is kind of a breaking point with it too, where it's like, well, we've printed so much, it's still taxation. It's just it's an influx. What happens is it gums up the systems, a lot of these systems, for a long period of time because all this money's there. And let's be honest, our government and organization very rarely does that go together very well.
No, right? But they can tax it out. I mean,
to a point. It is always taxed out to a point, but there also comes a point too where if so much is printed, there is a point where it's just like shrug too. I feel it's a little bit of both right now, in the sense that I feel like you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. If you're just talking about within your own system, your own money, that stuff like that, you're absolutely correct. But even in this time, countries are still trading with each other. People are still, right. It's still business never stopped when the pandemic happened. It kept going. So what that means is like, to some degree, you're right. We could have spent a ton more. Maybe we'd be in the exact same position. But there's also, I think, a point too where it's like, you get to an upper limit, it's got to come out somewhere. You know? Yeah.
Tax capital.
Yes. But I mean, now, of course, folks, we're just talking about money. not wealth. Wealth is a very different thing altogether.
Yeah.
Right. But we're just talking money. So, but no, like it's going to be interesting the next couple of years just to see how it all kind of plays out. It's yeah, it's going to be kind of crazy. I
I just
might
hope
like
we end up, even if we have to like some rough patches to go through. I just hope we end up with something better than this.
I inevitably yes. I think my big concern always in situations like this, decisions based on fear versus decisions based on what is the right thing to do. We all, and I mean, we can argue what the quote unquote right thing to do is, but almost always, I think that's the thing to always worry about is you make a decision just based out of some kind of fear. Even if the fear is somewhat justified, you're almost always make a mistake when you do it. I just think whatever we ultimately do decide to do, um, it's more just a natural progression of things, and it's like, oh my god, we're just trying to get something back. So I think going into the future, whatever that magical undiscovered country looks like, you're not going to get back what you had, but you might be able to get something better. And I hope people think about that.
Well, I hope we get something better out of it. One of the things that bugs me when you talk about, because we talked about science, about industry, about money, about jobs, about
Pirates.
and then there's all the the human aspect of it. A lot of people are fought to make progress for well, in terms of the rights that they have, the way they're treated by society, by the police, by does whatever, like trying to improve their situation, because they were at a disadvantage in the way things were working.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because you talk to people who are not part of these groups fighting for a better shot at things, and they're all for it. Like, fuck yeah, I, yeah. But then they complain that you can't do things exactly the way you do them before. Well, you can't write the novels that we wrote before. We can't say, you can't make jokes. You can't make whatever. Okay, but sure, you can nitpick at individual things, but I mean, logically, if we make things exactly the way they were,
We're just gonna end
then
back here.
nothing is gonna get better, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how we got there in the first place. It just, yeah, it's people are afraid of change, even though they want it. They don't realize that change means that things are not gonna be the same.
I put this out as my motivation for Monday. Fear is not a prison, but it's a door. The question is whether you're willing to walk through it on the other side. Because whatever you might think about this time, we're heading into the unknown, right? We have some guideposts. Some of the stuff is kind of happened before. Some of it,
Yeah.
but by and large, we're going into a different place. Whatever that looks like, we're not entirely sure. So it's natural when you're in a place like that to look at what is familiar to you. It's like what looks familiar, what looks safe, what looks
Yeah.
comfortable. Truth of the matter is, we're not like none of that stuff's gonna not almost none of that stuff's gonna last. Something might, like nothing completely disappears. But we are like in one real sense, science fiction is happening right now in that tomorrow is here and things are about to change and we're never going to go back to the way things were. Where we go will be better or for worse in large part because of the choices we make going forward, like today.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, some of it is, I understand the discomfort, because I think the solutions to the big problems, like we don't have them yet. We can't fall back to something we've tried before.
No.
So, and yeah, that could be sort of stressful.
Well, yeah, it's just natural, right? Like,
Yeah.
look, most uncomfortable moments in my life required me to deal with my own bullshit. I don't want to do that. No one does, right? No one does, right?
Yep.
But in a time like this, when you watch it, you see it, and you kind of just see where things are going, right? I can see some. Again, maybe how we see the future in terms of what's best might be a little different. But one thing I think we both would agree on for sure is we can't go back to the way things were, and I think that's a top to bottom wholesale change, and making decisions based on and we all got to kind of make our own decisions of what that change is going to look like. For me, on a personal level, because I can't control all the big stuff, I'm going to do stuff on my own. I like being self-employed. I don't think I'm ever going to work for someone ever again. I mean, it's possible, but I don't see it. I just see me creating my own little media Mongol empire in my own little corner of the universe. And if you want to come play, fine. I'm also a pirate. Don't tell anybody. Well, Sylvain knows. We'll work out the details off the air. But again, I've made a decision of kind of what I want my future to look like, and I'm just going to try and make it happen. And I realize there's going to be waves of for the next probably couple of years for sure. But even so, do I think we're going to end up in an inevitably better place? Yes. We might get to a worse place first before we get to that better place.
That's usually a step. Yeah.
But it's also it's the nature of change.
Yeah.
Right. I think the moment we're ready to let go of what came before, which I think the biggest thing is just the our leaders are at least in North America, our leaders have been the same people for 80 years. It's time for something, right? And I think that's one of those things that's going to kind of have to go.
The one thing that makes me less optimistic is, well, first of all, right now we're in this pandemic that's just where everybody is tired of it, and everyone wants one thing more than anything is for things to get back to the way they were, at least in some sense.
Yes.
And that is sometimes incompatible with this idea that we would actually take this opportunity now that everything is cracking everywhere to fix it and make something better out of it. And it doesn't always go when you're tired and afraid of what's in front of you, what's behind, even though back then you thought it was horrible, but it may look interesting suddenly. I remember after about a year of the Trump presidency, talking to my American friends, and they'd have paid money to get Bush back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you had told people we could get George W. Bush back in the office for 8 years, they'd have said, "Hell yeah!"
I don't know about 8 years. You couldn't. I
think they'd have taken their chance.
No. See. But again, if you want to talk about Trump, this is what I mean. Trump is actually a good illustration. If you were to compare Donald Trump to Ronald Reagan, they're almost the same guy. There's 3 major differences. Reality TV, because Reagan's from the pre-reality TV era of television, and Trump is from the post-reality era of television. Right? Both, right? 2, okay, there's no question Reagan was more well-liked and smarter than Trump. We're not going to debate that. It's true. Okay? But then 3, Reagan compromised, which is one of the biggest things that made him so interesting. Now, in a lot of other ways, they're the same guy. Very old, been on television for a very long time, had a lot of the same policies. The only difference is Trump did these policies in 2016, right, to 2020, whereas Reagan's policies were in the 80s. 40 years and doing the exact same shit. This doesn't work, but they're not that different.
Yeah.
Right. They're not the right. If you right. And if you look at leadership in the United States, if you really look at this, Biden's been there for, no, he wasn't president until now. He's been in positions of power for 60 years or 50 years. He's been there a long time. Fossey was around when the HIV crisis came about, right? Sometimes I wonder if he learned anything from the HIV crisis, but I digress, right? But you're looking at this, you're seeing the same kind of person, the same people in some cases, or Trump to Reagan, or Bush the Bush, unfortunately, father like son, or Nixon to all of these guys, Nixon even to Clinton, Nixon even to Obama. There's similarities there. You've picked essentially the same person for almost 70 years. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a problem. And Canada's no different. We've done the same thing, right? We're just a little less in your face about it. But
it's a shallower cesspool.
yeah. Yeah. But it's still the same problem. We've had the same people in charge for a very long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of decisions that are being made now have always been made. That's actually part of the problem.
Complicated to fix because the roots of the well, I was gonna say the problem, but the reason it doesn't change is because it's the same people. It doesn't really matter who we elect. It's the same people who sort of control things, but the roots of their roots in Canada are a lot run than they do in the US. In the US, it's like an impossible system to fix.
I'm just saying, like, I get it. Like, it's not the same exact issue, but you can see it when we're seeing some of the same issues talked about today that were talked about 40 years ago. I've worked for companies like that had the same problems every year. What I realized, I came to the realization is, if I can see the problems, I'm not the only smart guy in the room. Other people can see them too. Why aren't they getting fixed? And then it occurred to me one day, because they're familiar. They're the same problems. They're comfortably the same problems they've always been.
Oh, yeah. What I mean, plus someone has a vested interest in keeping that problem alive and well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a
combination. The interviewer in the Themis Files just runs around telling the president's advisors, saying, we can't really run a country with the priorities of someone who could be gone in 4 years is sure to be gone in 8. So someone else has to sort of steer the wheel for the longer trip.
Oh, absolutely. But like I said, understanding that, some of the choices that are being made right now are reflections of other choices in the past. I mentioned the HIV epidemic because there are definitely similarities there. I mentioned, you can mention again, the decision makers today. Biden's made the same decisions he's always made, right? He hasn't changed. You can watch his record the whole time. I mean, I'm not going to take my bet. Now, again, do I want, and I hate to say this, would I prefer George W. Bush to either of these two? Probably. And I'm not happy saying that. I really am not, right? But that's what happens when you have the same kind of people making the same kind of decisions. Eventually it devolves.
I was reading on the Bush record on the environment, and it's like if you need something to read to make your blood boil, that's good reading.
No. I'm not saying this is why I'm saying I'm not happy saying that, right? It's like I'm not saying this out of I don't that's why I said I don't think 8 years is doable. I don't know if you could get me to go for 8 years with that, because it's just I'd be like, no, I don't think so. But no, you look and you're like, well, these guys seem to make more sense then than they do now. And it really comes down to is, if you really want to break it, simplify this, it's because these people have been making the same decisions for decades.
Yeah, the discourse has changed so much though recently. Because I mean, when I was a kid, when I disagreed with a teenager, let's say, if I disagreed with someone politically, it was on things you could actually put down on paper. But now you have book burning, Muppet fighting, just Kennedy resuscitating weirdos that you I don't know, and still politicians are trying to somehow both side this, and it
well, okay. So this is my theory. This is just me thinking like an advertiser, not so much as a. So if I want to guarantee people are going to pay attention to my message, I'll say something controversial. Why? Because it creates an instant polarity.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Milo.
So
Milo, what's his face? His book got canceled and he's apparently broke now. But that's what he did. He ran around the country saying stupid
yeah,
shit so that
yeah,
people would get
yeah,
angry at him. Yeah.
yeah. People get angry. Howard Stern did this first. Howard
Yeah.
Stern did this first. He did this back in the 80s. Donald Trump, for all you can say about him bad, because Lord knows we don't have that much time on this podcast. The one thing he understood was how to play that game. He understood polarization, and for 4 years, he was the most talked about guy in the world. In one very real in the world where he cared about, he won because he understood how to play that game. You gotta give the devil his due there because it's the only way. It's the only way you can fight that motherfucker is you got to understand how this game works.
Yeah, but you think? I mean, you think the press would have had 4 years to like wake up to this and stop? Just
CNN made more money in that era than it, like and that's the thing, right? This is the problem with the media, especially down there. It's up here too. We have there is sometimes a conflict of interest if our government is paying for this media. It's like there might be a bit of a conflict of interest here, but there it's more like this. They've embraced the polarity. So
yeah, but you don't need to get to the point of an armed insurrection to like. I mean, you could see shit coming a mile away. I mean, yeah,
it's going to be like it might even happen here, right? Depending on how things play out. This what we're doing right now worldwide, not just here. You can see it if you look up protests everywhere, right? You can see this. This is fracturing everything. You can see it. We're going to come to at some point, and sooner than later. This is why you want to make the argument it'll get darker before it gets lighter. Well, this is it right here.
I think
right?
once we start breaking up social media, it's going to help because I think all of it has to do with the fact that now my voice is the same as anyone else's voice if I look on a Facebook feed. And before, when I said some stupid shit, my friends or my parents would come and say, shut up. Just please don't say that in public or whatever. But now, well, a couple of your friends might say that, but 150 people who believe the same idiocy that you do are going to come and say, hell yeah, finally someone who says the truth. And then now you feel validated in thinking that JFK is coming back. You're supposed to be slightly ashamed of thinking JFK's coming back. You're supposed to think it if you want to, but in a sort of quiet, I don't feel super comfortable talking about this.
So I think this is the one thing I think that what has broken down, and if you want to look at the big problem, and I don't care what leadership worldwide you want to look at, I don't think you can. I think the reason why you have a lot of this, the bigger on top of just the tools that people can talk to each other, it's also just the simple fact that I do not think I can find a leader today that has any integrity.
Well, there's got to be one.
If I'll wait. You name them, I'll follow. You name them.
I mean there ought to be one or two.
But here's the problem. Like we've had too many crises in the last 20 years. Right now, government's always going to take advantage of the situation. We've known this for as long as you and I have been alive. But what ends up happening is now, especially, this is the one advantage of today having all this stuff, is we have access to more information today than we ever did. I can look at how the government's handling the housing crisis, handled the housing crisis in 2008. I can make comparisons to what's happening right now. If I see similar stuff, what's going on? I can compare the propaganda of 9/11 to the propaganda of today. Does it look the same in any particular spots? Why, yes, it does. So and once you get people in the position of feeling lied to, well, they're not going to trust the authorities in power because the authorities in power have no credibility. And when your authorities in power have no credibility, that's when the crazy shit happens.
It's kind of weird. We had the opposite in Quebec. We've sort of had this, we're scared of everything, so we're going to actually blindly trust the people in power. And now we're seeing the opposite. I mean, this is a government that is more to the right than any government we've had since the 40s, maybe. I mean, socially to the right, they've passed laws that I think decent people consider at least in some way racist, but that at least are universally, everyone will agree that they specifically target minorities and affect them in a negative way.
Yeah.
So
You
just
put,
new anyway,
yeah.
and now they're they've had emergency measures on, so they don't need to debate anything in parliament, since like they've had this for like a while now. And they're selling us this idea that if you disagree with what they're saying with this law that specifically negatively affects minorities, for example, and you think it's bad, that you're not a real Quebecois anymore, and you don't believe in
You're at that stage already.
yeah, we're at that stage. And
Yeah.
there's no, I mean, I think if we had like another 3-4 years before the next election, people would sort of wake up to that bullshit. But people are still like, we just want to get out of the pandemic,
Yeah,
and
no,
I think they're going to go through. So we'll have an even darker.
well, I don't know how aware are you what's going on in Australia?
Not super far. I used to follow a lot more. I was there actually in February of 2020.
So Australia is nuts. We'll just leave it at that. You want to look them up? They have gone way off the deep end, right? So I to the point, like they're one of the more hostile areas in the world, even more hostile than Quebec is. The only places that are on par with them are Austria and Vietnam. That like it like what's going on down there is crazy. So what's ending up happening right now is people are getting angry and people are fighting back, starting to really fight back over there. I can see like Canadians and Australians have very similar temperaments. Like we're not quite the same. They're a little bit more in your face, but we're not that different either. So I kind of see our future, what's going on there. I'm just not sure when exactly we get there. I do get the feeling your province is going to get there first. So,
Probably. I don't know.
yeah.
It's super weird. I mean, it wouldn't take much, but and it's not just this government's fault. I mean, it
No,
started like a little
oh yeah.
while back. And but well, it started with everyone else, things got worse after 9/11, and then we found a way to sort of bring a bunch of people that were apart before together, so we could collectively hate the same people, and make their lives even worse than what we did to these other people that we were just. I don't know, it's like yeah, but it's just here. It's getting sort of super weird and acceptable. Like you see editorials in newspapers, and you think, really? Like, I mean, you should be. People talk about cancel culture, but these people should be like, you shouldn't have a day in politics after publishing an editorial like this. And these are like famous people.
I completely agree. But like going back to something we were saying earlier about the extremes, what's happened? What again in terms of division, insurrection, segregation, all that stuff.
I need a new beverage.
Yeah, go get a new beverage. We'll talk in just a minute.
I can hear you.
Okay, so going back to polarity for just a second. So the way to guarantee polarity, to absolutely guarantee that people are going to fight over everything, is make it so that people. I remember at the start, at like the middle of 2005, I could still talk politics with people openly. Somewhere between 2005 and before Trump got elected, that stopped. Right? And then Trump just made it worse, far worse. But But even before then, people stopped listening to each other. And so what happens now is now you're going after a group of people. So what are you going to do? You're going to go for the lowest common denominator. So we've come to this tail end of extremity. And just something I'm just saying, like, I don't think you can find a government anywhere with integrity. And if you had one, right, I think a lot of this would just magically disappear. It wouldn't happen overnight, but it would disappear over time. But the fact that we don't have one and that we're looking for people to blame and we're looking for all these things and people just want to get back to the normal, even though I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah.
Right. I think what it, like, again, I'm simplifying this. There's a lot more to this than that. But if I were to pick one rooted problem, one thing that to change the whole system, right? People have stopped believing in the credibility and authenticity of their leaders, not just in government, but business, everywhere in these systems we've had. As a result, the moment they've lost that credibility, people naturally, it's human nature to start looking for other answers, no matter how crazy they might seem. Because as crazy as they might seem, you feel you've been lied to, and you probably have. And because of that, you will explore those other options. Whereas if there was credibility, there was authenticity, right? You always will have some crazy, always. But it would be kept in check a lot more because, well, I can trust this guy or this gal or this person or whatever you want to call it because I believe in them, right? I believe in their credibility. I believe they're at least trying. I don't think we have that anywhere, and I think that's a big reason we have a big reason we have the problems
I
we
think
have.
part of it is just it's not a bug, it's a feature of democracy. It sounds super great when you say democracy, but democracy is nasty. I mean, democracy is wild. It's like it'll beat you up. Like 52% of people want something. Well, technically, we don't even have to listen to the other 48. It doesn't really work that way because no one really does it like that. But so that's a caricature, but especially in places where you have multiple parties, that's kind of, people have to do compromises that make absolutely no sense. Like you're it's like you have to talk to people who are at polar opposites of each other and convince both sides that you're actually agreeing with both of them, which ends up alienating just everyone, especially the ones in the middle who can clearly see that happening. And I think that's sort of what we're seeing in Quebec. Quebec is complicated too because the premier was a member of the PQ before, and everyone who was for, there's this perception that the people who want sovereign Quebec are leftists, and they are in some sense, and historically they have been economically, but the PQ has veered to the right so fast after 9/11. It was ridiculous. They jumped on the populist bandwagon, and so right now it's funny because the parties that were historically seen as sort of the right are the only ones pushing a remotely center left agenda, where everyone else is like pedal to the metal to the right, and we'll see how far this will take us. And it's super weird because a lot of people don't see it. If they see someone who was with the PQ in the past, for example, they think their values are left. And they're not anymore.
So, from what I've seen from the outside in, I don't know this for sure because you live there. I don't. The PQ has always been kind of on the extreme edges on both sides, the right and the left. There might have been people with moderate, like I definitely can see it because they're definitely.
We've had a lot of very moderate PQ governments. A lot of those prime ministers ended up leaving the party because the PQ itself is sort of ungovernable. It's
I always thought the PQ itself was kind of an extreme. So I almost made it almost makes sense that the moderates would like
The thing is, it
it.
was a coalition of people. There was no left and right in Quebec for the
Yeah,
like for decades.
yeah.
You were either for sovereignty or against sovereignty, and then everything else had to sort of align with that because there were only two parties that get elected. It was very weird. So, and the PQ sort of claimed the left. So whatever they did was left
Okay.
type of thing.
Yeah, like
But some of it, I mean, it ended up because it's a coalition of people who share one ideal in common, and everything else, like they probably won't even talk to each other. So, and
oh
it makes
god, that's
like it's an
dysfunctional.
ungovernable party. It's super weird, but the result of it was most of the time a very very centrist moderate party.
But if you have something with some organization in there, it could very easily go extreme one way or the other. And it sounds like that's what's happened. Right? Someone's in there just basically has organized the group. So
No, the
instead of
PQ has pretty much disappeared from the map. They have like no one, people don't know the name of their leader. It's like they could
yeah.
reappear at some point, but
Okay, yeah.
the government we have now is very focused on
No,
what it's
because
doing,
again, to get to those
and
extremes
and
requires that usually. So
and everyone for now seems to sort of be on board except for a not very vocal minority. I don't know, it's weird to watch.
no, I got you. Like I said, it's interesting. I've learned some. Like, thanks for the education, by the way. I've learned some stuff because
It'd be like if you wanted if you had a remotely leftist social agenda, you'd have to vote Republican if you lived in the States. Like it's like we've gotten there, and it's super weird.
yeah, no, it sounds to me like you have become kind of the United States. So maybe that's not strong enough beverage. Maybe that's not strong enough beverage. But no, it just like I said, like going back to like ultimately what I'm saying, I simplified it. It's a lot more complicated than what I'm saying, but I think it starts at the top. Like I think with a lack of integrity and a lack of authenticity, yeah, politics compromises, but you can bolster that with some transparency. I haven't. It's been so long since I've seen anybody in the government take a responsibility for anything. Right? It's like,
Yeah,
well, it's like I don't like again, I don't trust my government. And I know I'm not the only one in that boat. Right? I'm just honest enough to say it because you know, I'm just going by what I see. I've worked for companies that operate like the government. I didn't trust my bosses, right? They only paid me because they could legally go to jail. That's the only reason why I got paid in some of those places. But that's how it when you have a dishonest top of the system, you create a dishonest system all the way through it. And once people realize it, people just don't like people will go down rabbit holes. It's totally a normal thing.
they will get better.
Yeah, it will. No, it will. No, it absolutely will. Because again, it can't stand forever. Nothing lasts forever. So and people will go eventually. We've had enough, and we will change into some kind of better future, whatever that is, right? Right. But I tend to take although war analysis isn't exactly in vogue right now. One of my favorite books of his is Transmetropolitan, and there's this little story he talks about it because his character hates Christmas, but he goes, "The future is inevitably better, one winter at a time." I like that because that kind of feels very true.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, listen, my pirate friend. So, do you think so? Where it is possible when this is all said and done, you're gonna go at least to the moon. You're gonna try it, even bad health and everything like that.
I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah.
To get back to what you were saying, Kara in the first book says something like at the beginning, I don't trust people individually, they're all idiots, and but if you put enough of us together, we tend to eventually make the right choice. So
Eventually, right? We sometimes screw up too, even with that. But even so, eventually we figure it out. And like I said, I think the next couple years we're going to figure it out. And I hope, and like everybody else, that the future will be brighter. But no matter what, I will be pirating away because
Yes.
that's just who I am, right?
To a brighter future.
To a brighter future. And also, you'll be karaokeing away. You'll have to do the singing for both of us, my friend, because we both know.
Yeah, I think that was a one-shot deal for now.
Gotcha. But that all said, I did make a promise to you a few years back. I still intend on doing it at some point when this is a little less crazy. I promise I'd go with you to a bar in Montreal and we do the show with a bar in Montreal, both of us drinking and making an ass of ourselves on the air. I still intend to keep that promise someday. So, but also, you got some great books out now. I watched, like, you released a new series, it looks like.
I have a I have a new series that's sort of partly out. The first book came out in February. You know, the greatest time ever to launch a book, that February. Peak of the third wave, Biden had just taken office. I was like, yes. So much room for books in the news. Anyway, and it's called A History of What Comes Next. It's part of a series called Take 'Em to the Stars that follows over 100 generations of mothers and daughters, all genetically identical for reasons, who have been messing with our history for the last 3,000 years, trying to nudge us to the stars to save us from something really bad. And the first book is set in the 40s, at the very, very beginning of the space race. So it's got rockets and Werner von Braun and Russian scientists and just all sorts of 40s mayhem. It's also got a great playlist because every chapter title is a song from the year the story takes place in. And book 2 is called Until the Last of Me. It's book 2.
Nice.
Congrats, I didn't actually take it out on purpose. They're here.
No, that's awesome. I actually can't wait to read them. So I'm going to ask because I haven't touched them yet. Did you do the same thing, like an interview kind of format, or did you do more of a traditional story with these bad boys?
It's a little bit in between. Like, you recognize the fact that I'm there, that I wrote it, but there's a bit of a inner monologue as like inside the dialogue. So you're in some people's heads one at a time throughout. And yeah, book 2 is in the 70s and 80s, and it starts in 1969, and again, chapter titles are song titles from the years. So the playlist for that one is just amazing. I was very happy after spending 3 months looking for good songs from 1945. Getting to
60s is so much easier to find.
Yeah, 1969 is like, oh my god, which do I pick? Yeah.
Well, it's like, do you want a classic? Do you want something a little optimistic? Do you want something a little bit more experimental? Yeah. Music in the 60s and the 70s was actually amazing, right?
And the trick for these is it has to fit the story, right? I wrote each chapter listening to the song, and you can, if you want to, read the chapter listening to the song, and it kind of has to fit. And for, I'd say 99.9% of this, love songs really won't do super well. And every single song in the history of the world is a love song. It's amazing. It's super hard to find anything that talks about anything else, except in the 60s and the early 70s.
60s, 70s, 90s.
Yeah.
90s as well. So there was like a little, so now see, I'm a metalhead at heart. Like I'm a metal guy so that is where I'll see all this different, weird, wacky, mythological stuff, which is really, really fun to do. But in terms of today, the only guy that says anything of substance, and I'm only once in a while, is Eminem.
Well, there's stuff I can listen to today, even stuff on the radio, like that sort of like doesn't rub me the wrong way. When I got to writing book 3 of this series, it starts in 1999. And a lot of it is in 1999 and 2000. And these 2 years are just horrible, just like horrible. What happened? I don't know what happened.
Because there was a peak. Because okay, so in 89, like 1989, was when Nirvana came. Nirvana completely destroyed hair bands. Just destroyed them.
Yeah.
So Nirvana changed the whole music landscape. That's why I said the 90s was very different, because you had a lot of people trying a lot of different stuff. And up until about 1997, you have good music pretty much every year, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to look at like 1999, 2000, you want to look at that era, that was the Napster music digital like transition era, right? And we were at the peak of, I don't know if you remember this, but CDs sucked so much balls in the late 90s, because you get like one song that was good on that album and then everything else was like hot garbage. It
Yeah,
was
I mean,
like,
I was trying to pick that one song for
it
those
was
2 years for the
it's
book, and
hard.
even then, I couldn't find
No,
any.
no,
It's
no.
just like,
That's a
God.
hard year. Like, you get past, like I said, 1997, you can find stuff. 1998, you have to squint a little bit, but you can find something. 99, good God. 2000, like it comes back around a little bit around 2003, but I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta, yeah, it's not, it's,
I mean, it
music
has a
has,
lot to do with the industry and things like that. But I was, I thought when I started doing it, I thought it was the millennium. People would be like inspired, think of the future, or
they
whatever.
did. That shit came out in 2005. Like, you get about 2005, you get, again, you're seeing lots of people come out. You get to see some really cool stuff. The fact that now digital age has allowed like mixtures of all these different styles and stuff like that. Really cool. But let's see. Let me think about this. Yeah, man. Like 2002, like 1999 to about 2002. That's a tough time. That's a really, really tough time.
I mean, I found some. I
Yeah.
kind of like the playlist, but like some of it is a little more obscure than you would like for something like that.
Oh my God. I think the only good album I can think of from that era is, and again, it's debatable. They did better stuff earlier, was U2. They did
Yeah,
the all,
those weren't their best years.
well, no, All You Can't Leave Behind was a good album. Like, wasn't that like that came out in 2001. I remember that. It wasn't their best stuff. Their best stuff was in the early 90s. It was Joshua Tree and Achtung Baby. Those were the best two albums they've ever done. So, my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, 93, you get Bjork, that
Yeah.
like that one
No,
album
Bjork's
was
great.
like the best
No.
thing of at least
Yeah.
a decade. Yeah, it's just later on that it gets weird. I mean, 99, I think you have what, No Doubt, and Just a Girl is going to be one of the top songs of the year. I mean, it's an okay song, but it shouldn't like define the
Yeah, no,
2 years.
99, dude, like I said, 97, you'll find good stuff to like 97. 98, you'll find something. 99, yeah. By the way, to any bands that came out with stuff 99 to
Yeah, we
2000.
apologize profoundly.
No, I'm not. Listen, I know the industry has its ups and downs. You gotta go with the ebbs and flows as well, and I get that. It's like the book industry. There's always good music. There's always good books at every time in history. But sometimes there are better times than others. And 99 to 2002 was not a great time for music. No. Just wasn't. But no, dude, congratulations on your series. So you got one more in this. So you got one more in the series for sure. Is it going to be 3 books now, like the Themis was?
Yeah. So yeah, book 2 comes out in March.
Okay.
Book 3, I'm guessing the year later.
Probably a year later, yeah.
Something.
Something.
Unless they want to do a rapid release. I mean, I wrote the thing, so I'm guessing it'll come out at some point.
They paid for it, so you're good, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I can't wait for people to read the rest of it. It's interesting because I've wanted to do a generational story for a long time, and to keep the connection. Well, first of all the characters are like sort of, well, they're genetic clones of each other. They're not clones, but they're genetically identical.
Mm-hmm.
and they're also mothers and daughters. So the daughter in this book is the mother in the second book, and her daughter is going to be the mother in book 3. And so you get this sort of person who would be almost the same under similar circumstances, but who lived through a different era, raised in the 40s versus raised in the 60s and 70s and so on. And it has this totally different vision of the world, trying to define themselves as individuals too. That's super cool. But you know how we say, I'm not going to turn into my mom, dad, whatever, and then
We all do a little bit.
we all do, right?
Yeah.
Well,
We all do.
that whole I'm not going to turn into my mom is a lot harder if you're a 100% genetic copy of your mom. It makes the whole thing slightly more difficult, but also like more troubling. So this idea of figuring out who you are, defining yourself, it was a lot of fun to explore.
Yeah. So like for me, like my mid-20s, I explored, like, I had this eureka moment where I understood both my parents. They're good and they're bad. I understood both sides of it because I was doing things like I did some of the same things they did. And I understood why I did them. And I understood now why they did some of the things they did. And it was like, okay, this makes sense somewhat. God, I'm the same kind of fuck up, but still makes some sense at least, right?
Yep.
And
no, but it's a weird realization the moment you catch yourself doing the exact thing that annoyed you so much your whole life.
well, yeah. Well, it also just it humanizes your parents too a little bit too, because now you understand that the benefit is they had some of the same doubts and questions you did, and you know for sure, like
Oh yeah,
you
it's like
absolutely
I'm
know
48 now. I have
yes,
no clue. I
yeah,
mean, when I was 19, I thought being 48, I would know everything.
oh God, no.
Wisdom coming out of my ears. Ha, yeah,
No, I get less clue. I'm less clued in every year. I know more and understand less. That's basically how it
yeah.
goes. The only thing is I'm smart enough to realize that the people coming after me will see it better than I do. So my job then is to make sure that they can look and see things and have that freedom to see things. And so I can feel like an ass backwards hooligan in my 50s trying to catch up to them. I'm good with that. I can be that guy. I have no problem with that. But it's the again, it's that understanding of where you came from. Also, once you understand it, you can also then divert yourself a little bit. You never completely change, but you can understand. Okay, they made this decisions because of these reasons, right? I
Yeah.
can look at those decisions a lot more honestly.
But I
It
mean,
doesn't mean that,
they could have flipped a coin at some point too. I mean,
oh sure,
lots of the
absolutely.
time we have no clue what we're doing.
Yeah. No, and that's just, but that's I think one of the best things too. You realize that shit's like, and then once you have that moment, you're like, I can go a different way. Now, you're not always going to go a different way. Sometimes you're still going to go the exact same fucking way. But
My son started high school this year.
oh god,
And like every day I'm like, dude, you're doing it. You're still whatever. And I hope, I'm what I'm doing is enough or okay, or that I'm, helping more than I'm hurting.
yeah,
But it's super weird to just see this person now sort of like
doing you. Like you can see those parts of you. You're like,
yeah.
oh my god, this is me. Oh shit, I did
Yep.
this. that right?
Yeah, I'm
That's
paying for past crimes. I can see that, but
yeah, and you're like, and you can accept that because you did it,
yeah.
and you even understand why he did it, right? You understand why to some degree,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it's like,
Except when I was his age, I was absolutely convinced my parents knew what they were doing.
yes,
Yeah.
except he knows better. That again, in that sense, he will surpass you eventually
Yes.
because you'll get it right. In that sense, he will, right? So
Yep.
hope for the future,
Oh yeah.
realizing we have no idea what the fuck we're doing or where we're going. all that we do know, though, is one day at a time. Mr. Sylvain, I've enjoyed this conversation. How about you?
Me too.
Yeah.
I went totally as planned.
Yeah. What? Wait. Where the fuck? Who told you my plan? No, but when I met you, and actually, a real shout out to Craig DeLuey for introducing us. For you guys, I was cool. But no,
I
dude,
miss CanCon. I really miss CanCon.
I don't know if I go to CanCon next year. Like, I'm in Canmore, Alberta right now, so I don't know if I go back next year or
That's
not.
a bigger trip.
Yeah, it is a bit of a trip. I will go back at some point. For me, I'm going to be kind of exploring kind of my own avenues, I think, for the next couple of years, because I writing and the creative stuff isn't a hobby for me. It's going to be what I do. I'm not wired, so that's going to take. I think I'm going to get myself relatively established, but I do see myself continuously going into my own corner of the universe for a little while. But at some point, Randy McCharles will drag me back to Calgary. Some point, Sandra Wickham will drag me to Vancouver's Creative Inc. And at some point, somebody over there is going to say, "I remember this motherfucker. So let's bring him back," right? At some point, that'll happen. But I think for the next couple of years for me, it's going to be just figuring out my kind of like, again, it's a new world. I've kind of embraced that. I'm not going to subscribe to new normal, new this, whatever. No, it's a new world. There's new possibilities, and I'm going to constantly explore them wherever they lead me. And that's it. And that's what I'm going to be doing.
It's super weird because just look at the con scene. I mean, I miss cons. I really miss meeting people. And you had two kinds of cons. Something like CanCon, where I would meet authors, basically no readers, but it's just so good for the soul, and just meeting people who sort of go through the similar process and whatnot. It's like therapy. And on the other hand, you had they would send me to a Comic-Con, and I would meet like a shit ton of readers, and it sort of makes you realize that, because I spend the day on my couch, right, just doing this. I actually type like this, and just realizing that this stuff that you make is you see it's in your house, but that it's out there, and it touches people in some way, or helps them pass time and when they needed it or whatever. And then it really grounds you back, so when you come back, you're like, hell yeah, I have the energy. And so I miss all of that. At the same time, I can't see myself in like San Diego Comic-Con if it was next week, packed to the rim with like 100,000 people in a big room. I don't think I can do it.
I could, but it's more. I could. The question is, should I? Right? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure the answer is yes right this minute. I do see myself going back to various scenes at some point down the road, possibly as a pirate. You never know.
Yep.
Right. But at the same time, it's more along the lines of the fact that I kind of want to see where some things go, right? Because there are situations where I would never go back to a con. At the same token, there's a lot of options right now, like in just a lot of different ways, and I'm like, the guy going through the wall always goes through the hardest first, but at the same time, they own that piece of the wall. So I'm might be try to jump through some walls and kind of see what's on the other side. I'm kind of nuts that way.
Until like people started going back to cons, like I see friends on Twitter, they're going to they were at Emerald City, and I guess it's probably a bit of a shadow of its old self. It's probably not as big as it once was, because we're all sort of a bit in the same spot. But it makes you realize that we're kind of I don't know, socially damaged from the last couple years to various degrees. And because some people had it so terribly rough, we've kind of sort of forgotten that just because someone has it worse than you doesn't mean that you're doing that great. and, and then you realize that, oh well, maybe it was a little tougher than I thought it was.
I think so like I've said the story on my podcast a few times. I'll tell you. So the first week I was in Vancouver before I would go on Windsor South. Like I want to go see my family for the pandemic. And I remember again, you might disagree with my conclusion, but this is kind of what I chose to do. I remember during the week of the pandemic, like this was no mask. I was taking it, but this is Vancouver. You're not driving in Vancouver. You're taking a bus. You're taking a. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever lived in Vancouver, you don't drive there. You just do not drive in Vancouver. So I'm taking 2 trains to go to work, and I remember, and I got to watch the city slowly evaporate before my eyes each and every day, because I would go in, more stores would be closed, more businesses would be shut down. If you've ever been to downtown Vancouver and seen the various characters on the street, and none of them are out, like none of them, it was surreal. Like just to watch how empty downtown Vancouver was. I remember one night going home, and this guy approaches me. He's like, "Hey, do you have like?" He's going to work, and he's like looking for a pencil to draw. I didn't have anything for him to do. So and I said that, and I was kind of at my distance. He goes, "Thanks, man," and he just holds out his fist like this. And just for a second, I hesitated, and I felt really ashamed that I hesitated. Makes sense on one hand, right? But on the other hand, right at that moment, I recognize how cruel this time was. Because it's not the big, I don't give a shit about cons. I don't give a shit about restaurants. I don't give a shit about concerts. I miss the high fives. I miss the singing terrible Aerosmith with my friends in the audience. I miss the, it's the little joys of contact that we're taking from all of us. And it was cruel. And there's no other way to describe it. It was cruel. And I realized how cruel it was. And I decided, and I made a decision right then and there. I was going to be kind in a cruel time. Maybe you disagree. I gave him a fist bump right back. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to, I'm out here anyway. I'm going to take my chances. That might not have been your answer. And I get that.
Oh, fist bump.
Yeah. Yeah. It was yeah. It might not be, maybe it is your answer. But the answer, but I realized like, that contact, that little thing, is one of the things that makes life worth living. Right? It's not the big stuff, it's the little stuff. And that's why this time was so cruel. Because you have people saying, well, you can't do these little things. I hate the elbow bump. I'm never doing it. I'm just never doing the fucking elbow bump. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, and I ain't doing it. Fist bump, handshake. If you're not comfortable with it, I respect that. Keep our distance.
I'm okay. See, dissertation on the elbow bump. Some people do it where like this much elbow connects.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of strength to it. I kind of like it. The real I can do this. The real elbow bump, people do it way too hard too, and they hit the little nerve.
Yeah.
It's like, just I want to.
No, I just
don't do that.
I did it a couple times. It's like I just realized this is dumb. Like that was just literally in my head. It's like, this is just dumb. It's like, this is so dumb. If we're gonna contact, I get the logic, but seriously, if we're gonna make contact a little bit, you might as well at least do this or do this. If you're not gonna do that, I get it. I'm not saying do it, don't do it. I'm just saying, you know what? Either go all in or go all out. Fuck it.
It sort of helped me sort out the relationships that mattered and those that did not.
Oh, sure.
Because there was a lot of touching and kissing here. Like, oh, this is my colleague from work, Tim, and that's his wife, Lisa. And suddenly I'm kissing Lisa on both cheeks for no reason. I mean, I've never seen her. She'll be here for about 3 seconds. They're both going to leave, and I'll never see them again. Yeah. Maybe, putting my wet lips on her was not the greatest idea to begin with.
Maybe, but again, it's not so much. Again, it's the idea, the contact concept.
But then I see someone I know, and I'm like, dude, I'm so happy to see you. I just desperately want to,
Yeah. It's that again, it's recognizing what that contact need actually is. Again, I recognize the cruelty this time. And again, I'm not. Look, people gotta make peace with the risk they're willing to take, and I get that too. I'm never gonna tell anyone don't do this or don't do that, but I ain't doing that stupid elbow thing. I'm either gonna fist bump, handshake, or hug you, and if you don't want any of that, I'll respect your distance. I'm good with it either way. I'm a big enough man to go. Life's a risk. I'm willing to take some. That's me. That might not be you. I get it. I'll live with it. But I ain't doing no stupid ass. But I'm not doing that stupid ass elbow thing. I'm sorry. that's me. And again, that may not be everybody else's answer, but yeah, again, you got to live with yourself. You know.
Yeah, I realize I really a lot of touching was sort of socially normative stuff that that had nothing to do with the relationship you had
Absolutely.
with the person. And I'm not that depressed to have lost that.
No,
I miss contact with the people I care about.
Yeah. But I get that. And again,
I'm not, I'm not too sad if I never ever have to hug someone I don't know just because he thinks it's a nice little thing. Hello.
But would you do the Demolition Man high five?
What?
Would you do the Demolition Man high five?
What's the Demolition Man high five?
So in the movie Demolition Man, it's the cops when they did something, they do like the high five like this, and instead of doing actually going like this, they would just do the Demolition. I call it the Demolition Man high five.
Without touching?
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah. So okay, at least you do the Demolition Man high five. That's cool. No, I like it again. It's that desire for connection. That's the thing. Like I get that. That I will always respect. That all said, I do tend to agree with you. I don't necessarily feel the need to kiss complete strangers, right?
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Unless she's hot and women, then that's another thing altogether. But it's one of those situations where you realize, like, again, not everything was necessary, but there are some small things. And this, if anything I want to come back, there's absolutely anything I want to come back, it's this. I go to give you a handshake, even if you do choose to say no, it's not that I'm going to freak out thing. It's just like, it's just not my thing, right? There's a normal, there's a normal range of contact for everybody, again, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
That's it. That is the one thing I do hope fully comes back.
No, I mean, some people, someone needs a hug, but
yeah.
At the same time, like going the other way, we're saying like a lot of it was not necessary. And you go back to it and you realize how uncomfortable some people must have been since whenever we started kissing everyone on both cheeks for no reason whatsoever. Having complete stranger like sort of grab you by the side and then just like, oh.
Yeah, no, like I said, you do rethink some things over again.
Yeah.
Now, that all said, when this is fully over and we've thrown away the mask and hopefully we tell the pharmaceutical companies to go F themselves a little bit when we get back to that point, right? Contact will come back, will eventually come back too. To what degree? Who can say? I mean, it'll be different, but it'll also be the same thing at the same time. Some things are universal, but that's the hope. That's the only real, like, if I wanted one thing back, that would be it, if that makes sense. So
I wish I could like just travel and have a weekend with friends in the States every now and then, but yeah.
Well, I like I said, pirates, Sylvain, pirate it. Okay.
I realize it's
were you there?
Many problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just like I said, something I said earlier, we are going into a more dishonest time, at least in the short term, and there's going to be some interesting things I'm sure that will happen. But that, I think, is another conversation for another day, because not that I don't enjoy talking to you. We've had such a wonderful one. I don't want to go down dark, depressing shit at this point with you, Right? So we've had a good one, and I've enjoyed it. And would you? I hope you get. I hope you want to come back at some point because that'd be cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll talk about other stuff like your son did that reminds you of you, and you're like, oh my god. And next time you come on the show.
Yeah, he just walked by in his underwear. I think he's going to bed.
Yeah, that's cool. Hello, Sylvain's son. Nice to hear you. So you mentioned your books. How can people find you?
They can't. I'm hiding. I live underground.
Pirate life. Gotcha.
Yeah. No, I'm well. You know, my last name Neuval. I'm easy. It's just me, really. So, you
No
know,
website or
Twitter,
anything like
Facebook, website, Neuval.net. It's Neuval, but everyone says Neuval, so say it too.
Did I get? Hold on a second here. See if did I get it right? Did I get it right? Damn it!
It's an E, not an A at the end.
Okay.
Neuvel.
Yeah, because it's I'm sorry. My French has okay, it's that one. That one.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Can you tell I need new glasses?
Yes.
Yeah, did I get it right?
It's right there. I can see. Sylvain, I really do thank you for coming on board for the show tonight, and definitely come back. I definitely enjoyed I enjoyed our conversation for sure.
Thank you for having me. That was cool.
Yeah. To everybody watching, everybody listening, this is Sylvain Neuval. He is an amazing author. I'm a big fan of the Themis trilogy, but and definitely check out his new books as well. They're awesome. Incredible thinker, smart guy, probably smarter than he gives himself credit for, at least on the air. And we didn't even get into the story, and we'll do this next time, how you got best-selling authors to do charity right on the spot in a video. That is still that's an amazing thing. YouTube him on just names. It was Cory Doctorow. Who else was in that list?
I forget. Catherine Arden. It's kind of hard to find. I think you kind of have to look for Living on a Prayer and me and
yeah. So look up Sylvain Neuval and Living on a Prayer sometime. It is one of the most amazing things you will ever see. I legit to watch some best-selling authors literally freak out what you just made, what the spot you put them in. It was awesome.
I turned out all right. It was one of
those. No, you know what? That was the best part. It was great. It was absolutely great. I don't know why they freaked out so much. That all said, folks, so check out Sylvain's books. Definitely go to his website, say hi, tell him I said that there. But for me, I have my latest book out, which is my sequel to Alice 0. It's called Alice 1. It is Alice in Wonderland playing croquet against Jason of the Argonauts. Alice in Wonderland matched with Greek mythology. Nice. And if you'd like a little epic poetry with some great illustrations, you can. I put this up here. You can definitely pick it up. Check it out right there. And you can definitely go pick it up. It's an ebook for now. I'm probably going to be kickstarting this bad boy next year. And but if you want to wait for the physical, but if you want the digital right now, it's available there. Tomorrow.
Get both.
Or get both. Absolutely. Or tomorrow, I'm joined by professional wrestler, comic book enthusiast, December Lace. It's going to be a good one. And Sylvain, thank you again for coming on board.
Thank you for having me. Now I feel bad for not being a professional wrestler.
Oh, it's okay. You were, dude. You opened the show talking about NASA.
All right.
The person here that kind of always feels inadequate is me, because I'm looking at it like straight up. I've done almost 700 of these. This is like 695, wow. And every person I've interviewed has been incredible. Honest, like I feel incredibly fortunate. I got to talk Astronaut, money, the future, right? Stupid elbow thing, and pirates with a great author. That's an amazing thing. I don't ever take that for granted. So tomorrow I get to do another amazing conversation. I don't know. I think I don't know what your faith is in terms of God, but that's a blessing to me, if anything, to get those opportunities each and every time, and that people are willing to do it. I think that's incredible. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to everybody watching, everybody listening, have yourself a great and wonderful night. I will see you tomorrow.
Bye.